Hello everyone, this is part 2 of the Dynamo 101 training series. In this session I want to go over very briefly how to download Dynamo and install it properly on your computer. And then I want to go through the interface and the startup page of Dynamo just to give you a good idea of navigation around the Dynamo software. So let's get started. First thing I want everyone to do is come over to the dynamobim.org website. We already talked about this page in the intro a little bit. All the way on the right, in the right hand corner, there's a download link. So if you navigate to that page, it will give you an option for downloading 2 of the Dynamo versions. And if you have Revit installed on your machine, there's a chance that you already have Dynamo pre-installed with it. So this version here on the left, it already comes with Dynamo. And there's a different version of Dynamo called Dynamo Studio, which is a standalone application you can purchase separately and install on your machine. Just like I mentioned already, Dynamo is a beta software and is being rapidly developed. And what that means is that Dynamo is constantly changing. So probably what you have installed with your Revit is going to be a different version than I'm going to be using in this tutorial series. So what we actually need to do is navigate all the way down, just scroll down a little bit on this page and hit this button, View All Builds, and this will pull up another page. And what I'm actually going to be using is the latest stable, so it's this first link on top, and that version is 0.9.0. So I want everyone to download this. But before we leave this page, I want to scroll down just a little bit to show everyone something else that's going on over here. So just like I said, Dynamo is being developed quite rapidly, and new versions of Dynamo are being released almost daily. And this is what this series of links over here is. So even though the latest stable is version 9.0, there is a version 1 of Dynamo in the daily builds. The difference between those two might be that 9.0 has been extensively tested, though it's stable, it has less bugs. The 1.0 is really just a cutting edge, most up-to-date Dynamo, and it has some not so proven features and technologies incorporated into it. So if you want to be cutting edge, you can use that, but for the sake of these tutorials I'm going to be using the stable 9.0. So let's download that really quickly, and it's not a huge file. It shouldn't take too long to download. It's only about 50 megabytes. Once your Dynamo has downloaded, you can just click on that shortcut there and just hit run. You should see a new window come up. It's your typical Windows installer, so you can just click through next. I recommend leaving the default path here and just clicking through it. If you have multiple versions of Revit installed, you can choose to install Dynamo for all of them. And then I'm going to install training files as well, and we're going to be talking about those just a little bit in a second. And you can click through all these, just hit install. And again, it shouldn't take too long. It's really just a little bit over 50 megabyte installation file. Okay, once installed, I'm just going to uncheck the README file. The README file is just going to have information about bug fixes and changes to the latest version, so we're not really interested in that at the point. So just hit finish, and right now we have a choice of launching Dynamo 2 different ways. I want everyone to get used to launching Dynamo through Revit, because this is the context for the Dynamo that we're going to be discussing it in Revit. But there's also another option that I want everyone to be aware of, and it's called a sandbox. So if you navigate to the folder that your Dynamo is installed to, so by default it will be program files /Dynamo, there's going to be a sandbox version of Dynamo, which is a standalone version there, and you can just launch it without launching Revit first. So for the sake of these videos, I'm going to launch Dynamo always through Revit. So first let's pull up Revit. Once we have Revit open, we can find Dynamo in the Add-ins tab, and there should be a new Dynamo icon here. So once you launch Dynamo, you'll be greeted by the startup page. And just because I reinstalled it fresh from scratch for the purpose of this demonstration, I don't have anything in my recent folder over here, but this will be a list of a couple of recent files that we've been working on, and as well as a backup files for them. The thing about backup files is, as far as I'm aware, I might be wrong about this, but I think you have to be conscious of the fact that it only backs up files after you save. So when we start a new session and we just keep working on it without saving it, it's not actually being backed up, so keep that in mind. And then once we're here, there's a couple of standard buttons, a new button that will start a new definition. For us in Dynamo, a new blank canvas, and then a custom node, which we're gonna be talking about a little bit more later. And then, of course, the open button, which allows us to open a currently created and saved somewhere on our drive Dynamo definition. And there's also a couple of helpful links on the right here. We already talked about the forum and the website, so these are the shortcuts for all of that. We already talked about the GitHub repo. And there's one more thing that I want to mention is the samples. If you want to jump right into one of the sample files, you can access them right here from this menu. I'm just going to create a new canvas, and we're going to talk about the interface next. So there's a couple of sections to Dynamo, and I'm gonna cover briefly just some of the most important things. And things that I don't normally change in the settings, I'm not even gonna talk about them. I'm just gonna make an assumption that the settings are not very critical. If you know, I've been using Dynamo for years and I haven't had a need to change any of them. I might be wrong about that as well, but we'll see. So first things first, all the way on top, there's your typical file and edit menu. So these are the places where you can go to either start a new definition or save an existing one. There's a couple of things here that are pretty handy. If you're thinking about exporting your definition, your canvas as an image, this is where you would come here. It's a pretty useful functionality. So under edit, there's a couple of things here that I use quite often. Is create note, although it has a shortcut here, Control W, which I'm probably going to be using a lot more often, as well as aligning options, which also have an in-canvas menu, which I can show you in a little bit, and I'm going to use that quite a bit. There's also a view, which allows us to control a couple of different things. Really quickly, background 3D preview allows us to display a preview in Revit. It can be really helpful or really annoying, so it's up to you. I'm gonna show you in later videos how to either disable or enable it, what those really mean. It also has connectors, and they can be set to either curves or polylines. I've never actually changed this from curves. I can show you what the difference really is. And in order to do that, I would actually have to navigate into the library. So here, all the way on the left, there's something called a library. This is where all of the nodes, which is the basic building block of a Dynamo definition, lives in. And they organize into categories. So there's a couple of different categories that come right out of the box with Dynamo. And that is a core, display, geometry, office, and Revit. And you can see a bunch of other ones in here, which are Steam nodes and Spring nodes. They all have those funny names like Lunchbox. These are all custom packages that I have installed on my machine, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that. They call custom packages. So that will be the fourth drop-down menu in our panel, and this is where you will go to search and manage all of these packages. So if you want to have all of the same packages that I'm using, you can just go and search for a package, and it brings up a new menu. When we get to a section when I talk a little bit more in detail about the packages and how to create custom packages, I'm going to go and show you in more detail what these are. And then the last settings are whether we want to control our render precision. This is how detailed the geometry is displayed in the background, and then there's a number format, which basically controls whenever we drop in a number on canvas, how many digits that number would have. So let me just demonstrate that really quickly. If we navigate to the section of Dynamo that's called Core, the Core is going to have all of the most essential nodes that we pretty much guaranteed to use in every definition. And there is a subcategory called inputs, and there is a number input. So by default, number is going to have 3 decimal places here. If you ever wish to change that precision display, this is where you would go to number format and change that in here. There's also a manage node and package path. This also deals with the packages and custom nodes, so I'm gonna talk about that a little bit later. There's also a help menu where you can access all of the sample files again, like from the startup page. And there's a couple of shortcuts to the wiki page and the start page. Or probably one of the most important features in this menu is actually the About section, which pulls up a little window with a Dynamo license. But it also has one piece of information that's pretty critical, which is the version number of Dynamo that you're currently working with. So I mentioned in the intro the forum for Dynamo, where you would go to post any questions that you might have about Dynamo. It's actually pretty critical that you give people enough information about the version of Dynamo that you're working with, and it's this number here, to be able for them to understand better how to help you. Just because those Dynamo versions change so much and so often, that's why it's pretty critical to understand which version of Dynamo you're working with, and whenever you're asking questions, just make sure to mention that. So below that, we have a couple of quick shortcuts for creating a new file, or opening an existing one, or saving the one that we're working with. And then on the left, there's a library, and I already mentioned that it's being organized into sections and then subsections, subcategories. And there's a couple of different important subcategories that we're going to be using quite often. You already saw input. It has a couple of basic data types in it that you're guaranteed to use in every definition. In the intro page, I also used insert for something from the category of geometry. So this is where any design script geometry and the Dynamo geometry will live. And I believe we're using a line, so I was actually navigating to this section to create a line. And anytime you click on any one of those items, a node will appear on canvas. Also, whenever you hover over one of those items, it gives you a brief description of what this node is, and also it gives you some information about the inputs and outputs of the node, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more detail in the next session of our tutorial series. Now that we know where the library is and how to access our nodes, the next thing that I want to explain really quickly is this main canvas space. So whenever you select a node, and whether using the drop-down menus or whether you know the name of the node and you want to just type it in and search for it by name, and it will filter them out by name for us. Whenever you click on it and it drops it on canvas, there's a couple of things that are pretty handful. So first of all, you can, if you push the middle mouse button, you can navigate and pan around your canvas. If you scroll your middle mouse button, you can zoom in or zoom out. There's also these 2 buttons on top that allow you to navigate between being on canvas where the nodes live, and then switching to the background preview where the nodes get a little grayed out. And then you have background 3D preview available when you can navigate that as well. So again, middle mouse button, when you push it, it lets you pan. The right mouse button, if you push it and just move around, it allows you to just kind of pan around, rotate and navigate. And again, zooming by scrolling, zooming out by scrolling out. You can also, quite often I use this function as zoom to fit. So if you had any geometry in your canvas, it would just zoom to that geometry, and that's a pretty handful shortcut. And then you can toggle it back to work with the nodes. Beyond that, all the way on the bottom, there's a couple of things that are quite important. So by default, Dynamo is set to automatic. So this button over here tells you which state Dynamo is running in. And by automatic, I mean that if I'm creating a line, right? And I'm just going to demonstrate really quickly from the geometry tab. I'm going to access a point, and I'm going to also going to use a slider. So that would be in the core section of input, and there's a number slider. And the reason why I'm bringing up the slider is because I want to demonstrate dynamically and if we click on this little square button there on the node, it will give us a preview of data that is being generated. And also in the background, we'll see that there's a point that got created, this little thing there. And the difference between automatic and there's another option for manual. So when we're in automatic, whenever you toggle your scroll button, Dynamo definition gets computed automatically. And you can see that that point updates automatically and that data changes pretty quickly, right? However, there's another state of Dynamo that you can run it in, which is manual, and then changing any of the features of this number slider, changing this number to something else, doesn't actually push that information into the point. You don't see that point being updated until the moment when you hit run, and that's when the point moves up and changes its coordinates. So this is the difference between automatic and manual, where automatic it constantly recomputes and refreshes, and manual it only does it when you click run. So I think this covers the basic UI features of Dynamo, user interface features of Dynamo that I wanted to talk about, and of course there's a lot more to it, but we're going to be talking about all of these and we're going to get acquainted with all that information as we go along with the future lessons. So thank you for tuning in into this class, and then I'll see you in the third one. Thank you so much.